he likes to tinker. He likes to tinker with the stock market. Okay. I think a lot of you took my stop tinkering. I think some of you like that, the stop tinkering thing. Because I just look at like, do you guys really need to be some of the questions I see asked, and I'm just like, no, not where you should be. Go somewhere else that's going to make you money. There's too much tinkering going on. But TJ does know a lot about personal finance and money. He was the personal trainer to CC Sabathia, who his whole career was about 75 pounds overweight. So great job, TJ, for being his fitness coach. No, I'm just kidding. He did make about $75 million or whatever, probably more than that. But he made some decent money. TJ didn't get any of it, but anyway. So it's fun. But so TJ, what's your presentation? Onboarding, right? Coach onboarding?
Yeah, and not only did Joe eat into my time, but he stole like half my slides. I'm pretty sure he copied half of my presentation.
Cool.
No, it's probably the other way around.
That's on you guys for not inspiring beforehand. Well, good. So now that you're cut to 14 minutes, maybe you can cut the part out that Joe hit.
Yeah, pretty much. So my whole presentation will be about 5 minutes.
All right. So it's 1:54, TJ. You've got 45 minutes. So
are you gonna let me share this thing? How do we do this? Yeah, this mastermind is becoming a mind meld.
You're live. Go get it, brother.
Okay. There we go. All right, everybody can see my screen there? Let's see.
Yep, you're good to go.
All right, awesome. So thank you, Vince, for the great introduction, and thanks everybody for staying on this Saturday afternoon. I'm like the 12:45 Sunday Perform Better spots. So I'm bringing in not necessarily the caboose, but I do appreciate being a part of this thing. And at the end of the day, this has kind of been somewhat of a dream of mine, to be in a group like this and to be a part of something like this group. And Vince has been my mentor pretty much from day one. I met him at that plumber event that was in 2013, so it was 8 years ago. Man, that's a long time ago. So do you guys see my screen, or you see my presenter notes? I'm confused here.
A white screen, TJ, so I don't know.
You just see a white screen. Oh, okay. I must have screwed up the technical difficulties here. Hold on. Let's see which screen. Stop the share. Let's try this again.
Nora's very confused by all
Desktop number 2. All right. I got too many screens going. That's my issue.
I can see that. You're good.
Okay. You can see this now? It keeps going back to that. All right. I'm just going to have to go.
Yeah, you're good now. You're good now. Yeah. Just
the next. All right. I'll just do it like that. Okay.
Keynote? Who uses Keynote? This is Keynote.
Well,
works. All right.
Yeah.
You're good. You're good.
There we go. All right. I'll have to do it from here. All right. So we're at, pretty much the thing that I obviously didn't really know what I should talk about today, but the last time that I was able to present in the group, I did something a little bit similar to this, is just kind of like going through our internship process and how we bring on new coaches. So the most important thing for me, and even going after Joe, is something that Joe's educational assets, just the way that he explained that was great. And I think that that's why being a part of this group is so important because we're able to kind of like, bounce ideas off of each other and, just, call each other up whenever we need it. So title of the presentation, invest in your people, improve your product, and it's the 90-day onboard process. And today we're going to be focusing mainly on how to onboard a new coach. All right. So every strength coach or personal trainer, their greatest fear is when they decide to open their new businesses. They've got a few different things that you think about. Number one is, am I going to be training people for the rest of my life? Right? Is this going to be what I'm going to do until I'm 75 years old? Number two, will I ever find the right coaching staff to replace me on the floor? Right? And that's something that, obviously we've learned throughout the years. You're not just going to find that person. They're not just going to walk in your door. You have to make sure that you're recruiting the right way. And number three is, if I invest all the time into training them, then what happens if they leave? And Joe kind of alluded to that as well. The question, I think, back in the day, I think it was Alan Cosgrove, spoke about what happens if you train your staff and they leave, right? And you put all that time into them and then they leave. But then the second part of that question is, well, what happens if they stay? And so I've kind of gone through, and Vince has kind of explained, a little bit about my history. I've gone through, some trials and tribulations throughout the last couple of years. I'm in my 8th year of business, but I still feel like in my first year. I'm still learning things, and I'm still open to criticism, and I'm always learning, especially in this group. So it's something that I've started to realize that I really need to double down on the onboarding process of a new coach, right? And that's what today's all about. So the title of my presentation, I stole it from this guy, okay, Marcus Lemonis. He's sitting on a seat, on a chair of cash, right? And I think somebody in this group has it. I know that Anthony's not here today, so I'm poking a little fun at him, but he's got his cash room. I think this is what he's built in the cash room. He just kind of sits there in the dark with his cash chair. And I don't know why he's pointing in that direction, but I couldn't turn him around in the presentation. But we're talking about people, process, and product, right? One of my favorite shows on CNBC. It's the only channel that I have on my TV at all times. And Vince knows, because I'm watching the stock market, but I'm also watching things like Shark Tank and The Profit, right? So I think you can learn a lot from people in the business, and especially, the way that they explain things, the way that they're very visual in their approach. I love, I love to see what other businesses are, how to kind of dissect not just gym business. And I actually think that episode was the worst episode of all time. The one that he like made the guy go from small group personal training to like this big global gym, and then it like blew up in his face. So he doesn't know much about the fitness industry, but at the end of the day, I think the principles apply to all businesses. All right. So every business, okay, has some version of this, right? You have to make sure that you have continuity of service and experience. Right? Joe talked about the E-Myth, talked about the barbershop experience, right? That's something that, everybody can experience. You walk in the door and you get that 5-star treatment, you're going to then expect that the next time you walk in the door, right? And even if it's just a little change, people will start to notice, like, hey, yeah, it wasn't exactly the same. It was great the first day. I was working with this coach and it was great. And then the next day I worked with another coach, didn't really pay much attention to me. Maybe they were on their phone, or, maybe whatever it may have been. And then now they just want to go to that one coach's schedule, or, they just start to get fed up because they're not getting a consistent experience when they walk in the door. Right. So again, when it comes down to what we're looking at today is people, right? Who are the people on your team? How are you recruiting them? Where are they coming from? Are they just so happen to walk in your door and ask for a job? Or are you posting the right type of job posting on Indeed? And that's something that I've worked on over the last couple of years. Are you a part of an internship program with your local colleges, right? We definitely have to recruit that local talent. And, this is just again, it's probably one of the most important things, and probably actually more of a common theme during this Mastermind than it has been in a long time. I think a lot of the times we talk mainly about marketing in this group, but it seems obviously myself, Coach Joe, and Coach Mike Boyle, it's kind of like what we all were kind of talking about in our presentation. So we can't lose sight of the fact that your people are so important, and especially your coaches, right? And then also, what is the process? Not only the process of on-ramping your coach, but also what is your coaching process, right? So your process is, what makes your experience special? What is the one thing that you do better than anybody else in your community, anybody else in your industry, anybody else in your region? What is the one thing that people know you for? And for us, it's our coaching, right? So anybody can write a great program. Anybody can write it on a piece of paper or on a training app, whatever it may be. For us, we pride ourselves on the product of coaching. Okay. So again, what is our product? Our product and the thing that separates us at AMP from the rest is our coaching. And I really pride myself on making sure that our staff understands what that looks like and understands what that means, right? So there's a common saying that you'll probably hear, especially a lot of people hear this, earlier in your career when you're learning how to become a new coach. It's something you'll commonly hear probably in everyone's slide at Perform Better. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Okay, so I think that's it's a good saying, but at the end of the day, it's a little bit of BS in my opinion, because I think that we need to the caveat there is you need to both know and care. Okay, and I say this with my staff all the time. Knowing is caring. So if you're not trying to become the best version of yourself as a coach, then it shows me you don't necessarily care enough about your client. So I want to instill in my coaching staff that they need to consistently learn and they need to consistently get better. And if they're not getting better, then they're showing me that they don't care, and they're also showing the client that they don't care. So I want to make sure that my staff not only knows, not only cares, but also knows, right? So it's something that, again, I kind of poke fun at that saying a little bit, but I really truly believe that in order to show that you care about your client, you're going to become the best version of yourself. You're going to work to be the best coach in the room. And if I don't see that, then that's, you're not necessarily showing that you're passionate about what you're doing. At the end of the day, we need to find those passionate coaches. The thing that, Coach Joe talked about before is the E-Myth, where we're talking about the technician. Like, we need to find the earlier versions of ourselves, right? When we open our business, we're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and we're just trying to be the best coach that we could possibly be and get the best results that we can possibly get. We need to pass on the torch to our staff, and we need to find those exact same personality traits that we had. They may not have the managerial skill, they may not have the entrepreneurial spirit, but that you need to have those technicians that are passionate, that care, and that just strive to get better and better every day. And I've struggled with this myself a bit, because sometimes you don't necessarily find that right person, but you try to fit them in that role. And that has backfired in my case, and I'm sure it's happened to others in this group. But again, you have to find those people, and that's why the hiring process is so, so important. Right, so anyone, can anyone in the group, I mean, I know that, I'm not even sure if I can see the chat here. Can anybody tell me what the two things that our friend Tom Plummer, when you see the word Tom, T-H-O-M, it's Tom Plummer. What are the two things that Tom talks about as to why people leave the gym? What are his main two reasons why people leave the gym? If anybody can type in the chat, let's see if we can. I know it's something that if you haven't seen Tom.
Can you see the chat, TJ?
I can see it.
Oh, okay, good.
So, if you haven't seen Tom in a while, maybe you don't remember, but let's see, I'll give you another 2 seconds. Two reasons why people quit the gym: bad interaction No, not exactly. Peers, not exactly. Why does a client leave? Why does a client leave and they cancel their membership? Drop in quality, don't feel important. Well, it's not exact. I mean, it's something that cleanliness. Okay. That's number one. Usually talks about that. The gym is dirty. Okay. And the rest of these are pretty similar to kind of like what he says. So there's Tom. Number one is that the gym is dirty. Number two is that they're not getting the results that they came for, right? And how do we ensure that we get the results, that we're getting the results that we came for? And again, we need to have that world-class staff. I think Joe and Dan both did an amazing job at Varsity House. And I think Vince Gabriel's done an amazing job at Gabriel Fitness. And I'm sure there's other people in this group that I haven't necessarily been able to experience and watch your staff work. But that is always going to be the foundation of your business, is what your coaching staff does on a day-to-day basis. The quality of people, not only the quality of people, again, there are plenty of nice coaches out there that let their clients get hurt in front of them. And one thing that I'm very passionate about is that when I walk out on the floor, I don't want to see rounded back deadlifts. I don't want to see people squatting with their knees caving in. I don't want to see people doing a push-up without finishing. I don't want to see people with their spine in all kinds of weird positions when I walk out onto the floor, because that shows me that my coaching staff is not, either they're not caring enough or they don't know enough to fix the form, right? And I think in our industry, I'm very, very passionate about the fact, especially because I work with young athletes. I work with, I work with mostly high school and college athletes. And, if you just take a look at my competitors and, the people that train athletes in the area and the things that they post on social media, it will make you cringe. And if it doesn't, then maybe that's happening at your gym. And I hope it's not. But at the end of the day, it just absolutely, it should be a crime, the things that you see going on in these places. And then you wonder why these places are closing. And then maybe you don't wonder so much. The amount of DMs that I got last week from parents and other clients of videos that were going around the internet of my direct competitors, it's incredible. And they were like, what? Why are these people allowing this to happen? Why are parents sending them to these places that are, just absolutely crushing these kids' spines and, putting them in these crazy positions? So again, it's obviously the coach in me comes out and I get very passionate about these things. But again, I need my staff, I need my coaches to be as passionate or more passionate about these things. And that's my main goal. That's my main goal every day, is to make sure that staff is on the same page with me and making sure that we're getting to that next step. Right. So again, we talked about the E-Myth, right? It's just one of those things to systemize your company, systemize your program, and take all of that passion and put it into documentations and to systems, and making sure that we are, getting the most out of our clients. All right, system-based versus people. And again, this is a lot of this stuff, we've been, we've heard, not only today, but in previous months. So, it's one of those things. And I think, Joe even, hit on it. You don't need to systemize until you do. And what does that mean? It's too late when you're like, oh shit, like I don't have this documented. You start now. Okay. If you don't have these things documented, they need to be as soon as possible. And, this is something, I'm in my 8th year of business. So I'm about 10 years behind Joe. I'm about, maybe 8 years behind Vince and others in this group. And I hope that, obviously I've learned from my own mistakes, but I've also learned from their mistakes. And I think that's one of the greatest things about being in this group, is that, if you truly take something away from these presentations, these are, Mike Boyle, he's got how many years of experience? There's a reason why he thinks the way that he does. And there's a reason why, we talk about the things that we talk about because we also don't want other people to make those same mistakes. All right. We talked about the McDonald's, right? The founder. If you haven't watched that movie, you obviously have to watch it. If you haven't read the book, you have to read it. And that's the thing, Vince always talks about how he had Anthony B, walking around his gym and kind of taking that process, that step-by-step process, and making sure that it would work, right? And running through it himself first and making sure that, he can replicate that over and over again, right? So again, this is not necessarily, not everybody in this group wants to franchise. Not everybody in this group wants to have multiple gyms, but you really have to act like you do, like you will. Because one day maybe you might change your mind and you might want to have multiple, or an opportunity comes along and now you want to have multiple. I'm dealing with that myself right now. I have a huge opportunity for a second location. I was like, oh damn, like I'm really gonna have to like get my shit together and on ramp a whole nother team, and really make sure that I have people in reserve and I have that next man up, next woman up mentality to grow. And if I don't have those resources, if I don't have those human resources to get to that next step, and it's just not going to happen for me, right? And again, that's the hardest thing. Anybody can say, and Vince alluded a little bit to who I've worked with, and I don't want to be the guy. I kind of like shy away from the spotlight at times. But people kind of bring me in. They're always bringing me in because they want to work with CC Sabathia's trainer. They want to work with the guy that works with the pro athletes. But I just make sure that I have my staff is ready to go. And then they might say that in the beginning, but after a few weeks of working with my staff, they stop talking about that. And that's, to me, that tells me that I'm doing the right thing, that I have the right people in the right place. And it hasn't always been the case. It has not always been the case. And to be brutally honest, we're actually going through. I have a coach that I kind of like graduated to that head coaching role, and he wasn't fitting. It just didn't work, and nobody actually knows, but he's no longer going to be on my team. We had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and I let him know, it's like, I don't think this is for you. And if you don't see yourself growing into this position, then I don't see yourself growing within AMP. I don't see yourself growing within our company anymore. And he had to kind of like look at that and look at himself. And I had him come back to me, a couple of weeks later after he had thought about it. And I could just see, he was just like, you know what? Yeah, it's not for me. I'm not going to continue in this field. So, but you have, and that was me. That was a hire that I had made 3 or 4 years ago, before I was in the CEO group, before I was in this mastermind, before I was really faced with the mistakes that I had made in the past, and where, Vince, one of the first things after our first meeting when I joined the mastermind group about 3 years ago, the first thing he had me do was fire my first employee that was on my team for about 5 years. That was the hardest thing I ever had to do in my life. And that was the first thing, that was my first assignment. Okay. So, and again, you live and you learn. And I think that I've grown from it. And I think I've become a much better business owner because of being in this group and because of the challenges, the external challenges. I obviously try to intrinsically challenge myself, but at times I'm too nice of a guy, and I know what I want to see. And sometimes I'm not seeing it in front of me, but I've got to get a little bit more Tony. Vince, the first thing Vince told me was you got to have a little bit more Tony Soprano. so sometimes I got to bring out that Tony Soprano, and I got to, and I think that, we've all kind of been we've had our backs up against the wall during this pandemic. And that's something that I realized, like, you know what, I just had a daughter. That was another thing 2 years ago when my daughter was born. It was like, hey, there's no more BS. I'm not staying up until, midnight, 1 o'clock, thinking about things that I shouldn't be thinking about. I should be thinking about my family when I'm home. I should be thinking about my business when I'm at business, when I'm at work. And Joe alluded to that as well. All right. Okay. The next thing, Coach Boyle talked about it yesterday, right? I just added this, because it's just funny how, I love that I had put this presentation together weeks ago, and I was I'm tinkering with around with it. But when you start to hear your mentors talk about the same thing, even though I probably took this from them years ago, about the book, The One Thing, right? And Mike Boyle talked about, what was his one thing, right? The one thing for him was staff training, right? And the importance of having a good staff as the backbone of your business, right? And I'll give Vince some props here as well. So, the one of my favorite quotes from Vince is, you don't always have to learn something new. Sometimes you just have to be reminded of something you already know, right? And I think, again, this is something that, within this group, we just continually.
Business coach in this testimonial.
Yes, you are. So, within this group, I think you're constantly reminded of things that you had learned in the past, but then you realize, like, okay, I took that advice, or maybe I listened to that advice, but I didn't really apply it, right? And again, this is just kind of, you can put this toward anything in life, anything, and just understanding that when you hear it from multiple people, and again, that was from yesterday, hearing that from Mike Boyle just said, okay, like, this is okay. I'm thinking about this the right way, and not to say that everybody's situation is the same, right? Mike Boyle doesn't market, period. He doesn't have to. A lot of our mentors don't necessarily have to market within their community because they have such a big name. But that's not saying that I don't have to market. But again, understanding the importance and the hierarchy and the priorities, that's what was kind of special for me listening to that yesterday and saying, okay, now I know I'm on the right track. I'm on the right path. All right. And again, if you want to grow your business in size or in multiple locations, you'll need to be an on-ramping machine. Okay. On-ramping coaches, on-ramping staff, salespeople, marketing, whatever it may be. And I think that, Vince has been a great model of that, because look at the team that he's grown, that he's built within a pandemic, right? And I think that that's probably, I spoke to Vince recently, and he said the most that I've been doing right now is interviewing people and getting really good at asking the right questions during those interviews. So the more you do something, the more you put yourself out there, because that's not always an easy thing to do either. To even just, go through the interview process and talking to multiple people, you just kind of say, oh yeah, this one's good. But sometimes you have to be very, very selective, because you don't want to continually make the mistakes that you had made in the past. And for me, I had made the mistakes of, hey, the interns that, that applied, they were, first come, first serve. So if I had 3 open spots, it was the first 3 people. And then after a while, it's like, oh, who am I going to hire? I got this guy. He's all right. He's okay. He's pretty good. I can make him, a great coach. And there were that did really well. And I still stick to, I like to hire those that were in my internship program. And you heard that yesterday with Coach Boyle, and I'm pretty sure that's what Joe Riggio does as well. I think a lot of people in this group use that. I think that's a great way to do it, because again, you can really spend the time and give them the step-by-step process to be able to be a coach. And obviously you can either do that for little to no pay, for those 90 days. They're not only, obviously they're learning, and they should learn. They should absolutely get more value out of it than you do from that relationship. But now the value that you get is you have a qualified lead and a qualified person to become a future coach. And it might not be right then and there. It might be somebody that you call 2 or 3 years later. My last hire, I just hired this young woman, Hannah. She was in our internship program 2 years ago. And when I wrote that job application, I was writing it to her. It's just kind of crazy how she was I think she was about the 25th person that applied to the job. But I felt awkward kind of reaching out, because I knew that she already had a job. She was full-time. She was doing really well at the job that she had gotten right after graduation. And I didn't feel right just reaching out, but then she saw the application too many times, and she applied, and she's been on the team now for 3 weeks. She's been a spitfire. She's like, came in and kind of helped reorganize the gym. It was just like new energy. And it was already, she already understood what we do here, and she already understood the core values. So it was just an easy fit. And again, that's from work that I did 2 years ago. So once you start to realize and start to see the momentum of how important this process is, the more time and effort you'll put into it. All right. So what does what does your on-ramping system look like? And I'm going to kind of show you, and I don't know how well we're doing on time, but I'm going to show you a little bit of what our on-ramping system looks like as well. When it first started, it was just emails. So what we would do, so we have our 90-day internship process. What I really like to do is they're all, they need, postgraduate or graduate work. With this work in order to graduate. So I have great relationships with the local colleges in the area, Stony Brook University, Hofstra University, Queens College. We've had some Cortland graduates. We've had some Springfield graduates. So, we always have to keep those relationships. And again, that's just like a joint venture. The college, those college internship programs are just like a joint venture. You have to reach out to them. You have to, keep that relationship going in the right direction. And you always have to keep your eyes open and an eye out for talent, right? So in the beginning, it was just email. It was a bunch of Google Docs. It was kind of unorganized, still not perfectly organized. And we had our YouTube channel. So our YouTube channel is where we load all of our training programs. We use the app called Train Heroic. We transitioned to Train Heroic because, again, just organization wise, we just had these stacks of paper and stacks of clipboards and folders and just became a mess over time. So we switched over to Train Heroic, and that's where we have all of our programming for our adults, our athletes, middle school, everything's on Train Heroic. So it's nice to have it all in one place. Just started using Asana. I'm not going to lie, we haven't actually used it the way that we're supposed to just yet, but that's where I have it organized. So what I want to do today is show you guys what our Asana looks like. All right. And I spoke to Will. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
You guys can see this? Okay. All right. So here's what our 90-day onboarding process looks like. And I'll kind of just work. I'm not going to go through every single step, but I just want you to see kind of what the outline looks like so that you can start to build something like this. And I spoke to AB last night because he called me. He's like, "Hey man, sorry, I'm not going to be able to make your presentation." I was like, "Well, I'm making fun of you, so you'll miss it. You'll have to watch it again later." But first thing I do, once we accept 3 people into our internship program, and to be honest, we haven't had one in a year because of COVID. It's been really tough to get interns that will be allowed. I know Hofstra, we usually get probably 5 or 6 from Hofstra every year, and same with Stony Brook, and we've only gotten 2 or 3. So we haven't had a true internship class, and I have different times of the year that I'll have pretty much different seasons. Our summer internship program is looking really good. I think we have 7 applicants for the 3 positions right now. So that's probably the next time we're gonna be using it. It's gonna start in May. So pretty much what we're looking at here is we send out prerequisites about 2 weeks prior. Okay, so it's just basic things like our training philosophy. And I don't know if this screen is a little small, but it's just kind of like an overview. We have our coach's education outline and our overview. This is all in a Google Doc. Okay, our training philosophy, again, it's in a Google Doc, and we'll ask them a few questions along the way. So this is the Asana platform. We just started using it. A friend of mine actually works for the company. He kind of took me through it and showed me how they use it for on-ramping. You can use it for your coaching staff meetings over here on the left. You could use it for your level 10 meetings. We have a customer success on-ramp, and just kind of like any kind of a project management that we're going to use. It's a nice way where we can kind of go through here and you can check off that you read it. You can check off that you did that assignment, and there are due dates here, right? So this due date was yesterday. I just kind of set it up for our presentation today, so you can see that you can check these boxes off. So when you're on-ramping a new employee, you just have to email them this link, and then they have access to the full curriculum. All right. So as you can see, I've got my, then the next part, it's just a link to our YouTube. They're going to have 2 weeks to go through this. So we want to see, are they coming in prepared, or did they just, goof off and not do anything until either the day before, or, they didn't watch it at all. And that might be that, hey, you're cut. If you don't make it, if you can't show me 5 exercises and how to demonstrate them, then you're not going to make it. We might have to call somebody else. So we want to, obviously in that time, we're emailing, we're talking, we're on the phone with them a few times, we've met them in person already. I don't have to go through that whole process. And then we like to throw out educational resources. So this is the Mike Boyles, this is the, the Stu McGill's, the Athlete's Performance, Exos, we're sending them just kind of links. Hey, these are the types of things that we would like for you to start looking into. I know that you're, in your textbooks and working on finals or whatever it may be, but we also want to show you some things about the industry and the mentors that I've learned from, that we've all learned from, that we want to, start to, pass that on to the next generation of coaches and make sure that they're not learning everything from Instagram and TikTok. And that's sometimes we get, where do you get your most up-to-date information? And a lot of them it's Instagram and TikTok. So we don't necessarily want that to be the standard in our industry. And then, we've got an outline of what our hands-on coaching looks like. Okay. Just like understanding, what we're going to be doing weekly. We've got our core values. Okay. So I'll just kind of show you like what it looks like. It just pops open. It goes right to a Google Doc. So it's just a good way to organize it. I think we all, over time, like at least my Google Drive has become like a freaking mess. So this is one way that, even though the Google Drive still isn't perfect, it will reorganize it in Asana so that they can just click on it and it goes directly to that. And again, it doesn't live in their email either. So sometimes people, you lose track of emails and you lose track of your files and things like that. So this is something that that will reorganize and make sure that, again, we're on the right track. Something in here is beeping. I don't know what that is. So, just basic things, these are the things that the way that I kind of outlined this in the first place was sometimes it's like, what did every bad intern ever do? And we have a whole presentation, like the first week that they're here, it's how to be a shitty intern. Hold up the wall, try to jump, or either hold up the wall and not do anything, or try to jump in and start coaching right away. And even though you have no idea of what we're doing, what we're trying to accomplish, what the context of our coaching is. So we kind of, set the standard. It's like, hey, this is what we're expecting. We want you to be an active learner. We want you to shadow. We want you to, introduce yourself to our clients, but you're not coaching day one. You don't get clients when you walk in the door. You're going to learn our system first, and then we'll start to gradually implement, things like doing the warm up in a speed class, doing a middle school class, starting to understand the evaluation process. So again, going through all of the things that you want to lay out in front of a new employee, a prospective new employee, that at the end of these 13 weeks, okay, it's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff. But at the end of those 13 weeks, they should have a really good idea of what it means to be a coach in your company. And the other thing about this is that now they can reference back to it. And it's something that, again, you don't necessarily have to learn something new. You just need to be reminded about what you already know. So we have quizzes, okay? We have all of our different types of exercises, like the most common exercises that we're doing. Our concepts, our common concepts, again, core values are so important within this. And then also, understanding, as you get later in the sessions, they're going to be doing things like they're probably going to have assignments from their college. They might do a case study. Okay, so the final exam is going to be a case study. They're going to be following along. We want them to within about the second month of being an intern, they're going to actually be responsible. The way that we have small group personal training. But the first session, the client's first session, actually the first 3 sessions, is a one-on-one with one of our interns usually. So when our interns are ready to coach, they are going to, after that evaluation, they've probably shadowed that athlete's or that individual client's evaluation. Then they actually get to coach them on their first few sessions, obviously with oversight from our coaching staff. And then in those coaching meetings, obviously we're going over these things. And then they're going to be able to gain some knowledge and understand what it's like to have a client and what it's like to see somebody come along our process. they get to be a part of that evaluation, the part of that, maybe even the reevaluation of those clients, and then they can present a case study at the end, right? And then we also want them to share their story as well. So as you can see, we kind of like weave in a bunch of different things, how to train youth athletes, the strength program design, right? We start to understand our program design, designing speed and agility sessions, and personal training with our adult program, the importance of the consultation, shadowing, again, a consultation or an evaluation. The initial evaluation, they'll get more of a hands-on. So all of these, every week, they're gonna be a part of our full team meeting. They're gonna be a part of our coaching staff meeting, and then they're gonna also have a meeting with their mentor. So whether it's, sometimes I'm one of their mentors, sometimes it's one of my coaches is their mentor. And again, this is something that your head coach should be running, but you also have to be a part of as well, and make sure that, once for me, I haven't necessarily graduated to the point where I don't have to have a part of this. I'm still involved, and I'm still in the day-to-day of this process as well. Hopefully one day I'll be up and watching down from my perch like Joe Riggio while everything operates perfectly below me. But again, this is where I'm at in my business, and it's something that, this is that, like Joe said, if an educational asset that I can continually go back to. These are all lessons that were done years ago. Some of them were more recent than a couple of years ago, but I keep going back to those Google Docs. I keep refreshing, seeing, okay, what are some things? And then my coaching staff goes in and say, hey, we need to update that in our coaching documents. This used to just live in our Google Docs, and it was, I forget what we actually titled it, but it's like our coach's education manual, I believe is what we called it. So go back to the manual, add this, concept that we don't necessarily, talk about enough, or think, different lessons that we pick up along the way. All right. And then obviously this is just focusing on coaches, and really you just need them to focus on the one thing. And the one thing for us is always be coaching, always be watching, always be coaching. Make sure that you're not just standing there staring off into space, obviously, that we're not just hanging out and having conversations. We need that professional coaches, persona out on the floor at all times. And that's their one thing, right? When Mike Boyle talks about us as owners, or what he focuses on is staff training. For our coaches, coach. All I need you to focus on. Become the best coach. Become the best version of that coach that you can possibly be. And we are the guide as the business owners. We are the guide, right? So we go back to Story Brand and Donald Miller. We talk about that with our clients. We as coaches are the guide. As the business owner, we are the guide in our coaches' development, right? And they are the rock star, right? I do my best to deflect to my coaching staff. You got to work with Coach Garrett because he's the best at X. You got to work with Coach Hannah because she's the best at Y. And that's the only way that you can start to take that next step as a business owner, so that you're not the one that they would say, no, I want to work with the owner. And, we've had those conversations as well, where it's like, hey, it's either not happening or it's this much. But you still, even then, who are you taking time away from, right? And who was it that just recently said, you're taking time away from my family? That's, for me, I started to, once I had my daughter, I was able to really understand that, you're not just taking time away from me. I think it was Coach Boyle. You're not just taking time away from me, you're taking time away from my kids, right? So that's, just another thing that, as you go back to the real world after this weekend, I hope that, again, some of this stuff was repetitive, but, even just going through, creating this presentation, when you create presentations, you start realizing, I got some holes in here. I got to fill these holes, right? So even just creating these presentations for your staff will open your eyes to like what you're not focusing enough on, or the little things that become the big things, right? And I do my best, but we're still plugging holes. We're still going back and making sure that we're not forgetting anything. And then once it gets to that point where it's the masterpiece, it needs to be fixed again. You need someone else to then put their spin on it. And obviously after years of, being in your system, they should have the trust to take it to the next level. And that's, I'm not there yet myself as a business owner. I was there. I had an employee that we were really, bringing down that path. Things didn't work out. But again, that's just shows the importance. You just have to have these systems and these assets that, again, don't necessarily have to be built by you. They can be built by your team, and, make sure that we're able to take the next step as the business owner, and to be able to make the impact that we want to make on ourselves and our family. And, again, that's what it's all about, right? We want to make sure that we're not a slave to our own business. So we need to build these types of things. And I hope that everybody that's still on this call on a Saturday afternoon, that I brought you some value today. That's really all I can ask for, is that I brought you at least one thing that will, have you thinking when you go back to your businesses this week. And if anybody has any questions, I'm open to anything, and or any critiques, and we'll go on from there.
Great job with that, TJ. I like how you've laid things out. Like, I really like that, and it makes a ton of sense. When you put this out there as an internship, do you market it like a program? Like, do you put the word out that our summer internship starts on June 6th? We're taking applications now, or do you work with
Yes.
the individual interns who come in?
So I have it out there. It's on my website. I have the dates. I have, it's on Indeed. It's on ZipRecruiter. A lot of our interns come through Indeed and ZipRecruiter, actually. And then that's when we then get introduced to their program director. So then I send it out to the program directors every time we update the dates. So yes, man, if I had it handy, I'd pull it up for you, but I can send it. I have the dates. I have the amount of space that we have. We accept 3, and we start to accept people usually anywhere between like 3 and 4 months ahead of time. I get applications. I had applications in November for May. So, when kids start to look at their calendar, they start to realize, where they want to get placed. And once you start getting the local students, they start to ask their program director for those times. And one of the biggest things that we've had an issue with lately is just obviously around COVID, everything has kind of changed around. Their class schedule is different than it normally is. So sometimes I'll get an internship application, but then they can only apply like 6 hours a week. And I'm like, well, then I can't take you through this process. And I really want to take you through this process to give it its due. And we have taken on some interns that like only work on Saturdays, or, they only work on, Monday mornings and Tuesday afternoons or something like that. But I don't love taking those on, and I don't actually consider them a part of our internship program until they can commit those 90 days. And, it's not to say that I don't bend the rules and that I don't, bring people on quicker than 90 days either, even if I, especially if I really need to make that higher. But I think that once you start to realize the effect, I think our summer internships are always the best, because there's no class schedule that really, jams things up. And that's where I've actually hired most of my coaches, is from my summer internship, because they're actually, they dedicate, May through August. And it's just an incredible time of year, because we have so many people in the door. We have, that's probably our, some of our best months with our athletes and our adults, with consistency. So they're able to really see the company operate the way that it should. And there are certain times of year we really don't have any interns. So right now I have one, and he's only here like 3 hours a day because of his class schedule. And we actually just had to decline one, because he was supposed to start with one of our guys, Mike, but he showed me his schedule, and I was like, you can come in on Tuesdays between 3 and 4. Like, that doesn't make sense. So I try to create the foundation and the standard, and then you just can't fit everybody into that. And like I said, if we do take some people on that don't necessarily fit that 90-day plan, but they don't truly get, it's a lot of stuff. I mean, it should be a college course. That's the way that you should treat this, is that it's a college course in the way that you want your business to be run. And I think, even, again, talking to AB last night, he's like, how do you have 13 weeks of stuff? Because all he does is bicep curls, and that's all he has to teach is proper form on bicep curls. But there's a lot of shit. I haven't even gotten into nutrition. I haven't gotten into, the next steps, right? The next, obviously we need the foundation for the first 3 months, but then after that, how do you differentiate yourself in the field? How do you differentiate yourself? How do you take the next step as a coach? And what are the different ways that you can do that with an amp? What are the different ways you can do that within the industry? And it doesn't always, just like when I sit down with a prospective client, hey, you don't have to do this here, but you have to do this somewhere. You have, and just because they come through our internship program doesn't mean they're getting hired. So we want to prepare them for the real world. And, I hope, and I know that we've done a great job with that, because I constantly, all of our interns are so appreciative. They always stay in the mix. I do my best to then, deflect them and send them in other directions as well. When it comes to whether, giving them introductions to other coaches in the field, giving them, letters of recommendation. And again, that's how you you stay in the mix with those directors and, at the colleges. And, it's really important.
Awesome job, TJ. You're getting a bunch of questions in the chat. How many hours per week do your interns typically do?
So it's normally at least 20 hours is what I ask. And this is all in the interview process. It's at least 20 hours. That's the minimum. So it's 4 days a week, 5 hours. It's 5 days a week of 4 hours. It's, you have to, I really want them to be at our meetings. So if you can't make Monday meetings, you can't make Thursday coach meetings, you can't make every other Saturday, it just might not be the right fit. And again, we do take people on that don't make our meetings, and they're not a part of this process. So it does make it difficult at times, especially, during the school year. But yeah, that's minimum of 20 hours. And usually they need X amount of hours to graduate. So most of our kids, they come through and they need at least 90 hours, I think is what it is. But it's, again, I asked for this 13-week commitment. And sometimes, that they don't fully finish it, but they have access to it. So, but every hire that we've made have gone through this 90-day. And, I think for me, it's the only way that this is the whole hire slow, fire fast, right? And again, I still haven't made all the right decisions with that, but this is the hire slow process for us. And, even if you knew you were going to hire somebody, you need to take them through something like this. Any other questions?
Yeah, the Jennings said, and I do want to give a shout out to the Jennings. They've been in business way longer than I have and are doing a damn good job. And here they are on the last presentation of the day, telling them that they're going to take these systems and implement them. I mean, that's just shows you, the kind of people that are in this group. So great job. So I don't think there's a question there. I think it was more of a compliment.
Thank you.
Okay. Saying great job.
Thank you, Kathy. I really do. I take that.
And again, you have to take TJs and use it exactly. No, but I think you need some kind of a structure. You need something to do for when you bring someone on. Otherwise, they're like, all right, now what? And I will tell you this, and this is an important statistic to know. People make the decision to quit a job in the first 90 days that they're there. That's a Harvard Business Review study that the first 90 days they're there. If it's all disorganized and all discombobulated, one of the reasons why we keep people for the long haul is that our interview process is so good and so long. You heard Leo mention he had 14 interviews and stuff. That alone tells the people you bring on that, all right, well, this shit is serious. This is a real, I had to work for this job. So that's even part of your interview process is technically kind of part of the onboarding process to be able to, cement them in.
Yeah, I mean, just like anything, if just like selling a new client, the first 90 days is so important. And that's why, with our proven process, it's a 90-day process. And we talk about this in the CEO all the time. And I think I always try to whittle the way that I think about business, and any goal is in a 90-day plan. And I don't know where exactly it came from originally. I think actually through the precision nutrition curriculum, a lot of what they do when you create, kind of an action plan, it's actionable. It's an action plan within 90 days, right? And I think, just even we have our CEO meetings every quarter. You have to put together that 90-day plan and work backwards to the next mastermind meeting, and check those boxes. So, this is just the beginning. So it doesn't stop after they've learned for those 13 weeks, because a lot of times they need to be reminded. But then you have to then take them down the path and be their guide to, continually bettering themselves and continually giving them the tools to become the better version of that coach, and also be in the next maybe phase of their career, whether it's getting into sales, whether it's getting into marketing, whether it's, being the leader of a second location, being the leader of the location that they're at, maybe moving on and becoming a business partner. Those are all things, that you can kind of do within this system. And then, I want to have this as, okay, this is level 1, now it's level 2, level 3, level 4, and kind of do this for every aspect of the business too.
This is a good question from Missy. We live in a small town with no college to draw from. Where can I look for interns? So far, I've converted clients to trainers, and it goes pretty well. But any other ideas would be great.
I would say the job application is probably your next best thing that you can do, whether it's on Indeed or ZipRecruiter. I also think that there are situations where if you have a need for a hire, you may need to pay for this process. It doesn't always have to be unpaid. But I think the way, even just, Vince's, hiring manual kind of outlines a lot of this stuff too. And, that's been a tough one for us, especially through the pandemic. We haven't had as many applicants directly from the department directors that we normally do. I usually, I'm on the phone with the Hofstra, exercise physiology, the head of the Hofstra department, on at least a monthly basis. And she hasn't really been able to send us people because of, kids working remote. They're not necessarily in town, like all these different things have been piling up. So she's been asking me to do virtual versions. And I'm like, I really can't, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a future there, but it's kind of hard to do these things virtually, at least in my setting.
Looks like Nora said there's a gym internship program that we're looking for. Yeah, I would say you almost, Missy, if there's no interns that are doing it for college, you almost got to start an apprenticeship program within your community or within your members, where it's a 3-month thing, and maybe it's paid, maybe it's unpaid. I think you got to look at the laws in your state to see if it is unpaid, if you could be running into issues there. So I think you got to look into the state of Idaho, Missy.
Yeah, I feel like it has to be for college credit. I don't know if I'm just putting that rule on myself, but I think I don't feel right doing an unpaid that's not for college credit. So again, there probably will come a time where maybe I don't necessarily have the depth of talent that I need in my previous internship pools, and I may need to go right into a paid version of this. But again, this is, any new hire, you could do this for every single position in your business. And I haven't yet, but that's my goal, is to have this as, especially the on-ramping process. You could probably outline just about everything you need to know to be formidable in that position. And then, okay, now what's the next step? And then that's kind of they need to direct that themselves a little bit too, their own continuing ed. You just need to be the guide. And, sometimes people will come to you with hey, I'm really looking into this. What do you think about that? Maybe there's a certain certification they're looking for, or, maybe they want to help out with social media. They want to help out with sales, then that's where you can kind of direct them whether it's you're teaching them about sales yourself or you're putting them down a path of a sales training from another company, those are all things that you can do.
All right. Awesome. Marty says, my last hire came about by reaching out to all the non-trainer fit pros I know in the area. Yoga, Zumba, spinning instructors, so I thought new potential trainers. That's a good one. And I think that
even your previous interns, reaching out to them.
Your current team members. Do your current team members know anybody? I can't remember who told me this recently, but they told me that all of their new employees come from referrals from their current employees. Because they're connected. They're probably, on Instagram and, they're connected to different people. So Missy, maybe it's not an intern. And remember too, you need an intern if you have, I'm not saying you shouldn't have an internship program. It's very helpful because you have a pool of essentially a free test drive. But if you have like one really small location, you keep your team members for a long time, you're hiring one person every couple of years, like you're not doing a huge, and an internship program is like, it's not like you have to have one. TJ's got a big growing company. Varsity House has a big, Boyle has a revolving door of staff members because they go off and do other things. So I do think it's a very valuable thing, but Missy, you may be in a situation where you necessarily just, when you need somebody, you go to Indeed and you pull the trigger and do a 3-month deal where you for the first 3 months, it's a test drive to see how they do. And then, go from there. So
I will say one more thing on that, Vince. I will say that I probably had a little bit of that mindset myself when it comes to not thinking that I necessarily needed to put that much time into it until, like I said, until you have to. And when obviously when things change, when your aspirations may change, or when that coach that you thought was going to stay with you forever decides that they're no longer in the industry. So I think that you always have to, keep those feelers out there, and you want to have, at least a few that you can call upon. And I think it's a good idea to even just have the goal of having one intern per quarter in your gym. And it might not always happen. Maybe in the summers you have 2 or 3. Maybe in the wintertime you only can get 1. And that's kind of what it's been for me. The summers have been the time when I can really get, these prospects through the door that are really go-getters, and they want to learn. They don't want to just take the summer off. They want to learn, or maybe they have to graduate. But they're out there. They're absolutely out there. And there's a lot of people that even if they're thinking about, they want to open their own gym, they might be a good fit for you, early in their career.
I think the solution for you, Missy, is if there's no trainers around there, that you make them. Right. Yeah. Oh, that's what you said. Perfect. Okay. I have to create them. Exactly. So, and I think a lot of people have had great success with that. I don't think that you think about the member that came in, that they drank the Kool-Aid, they got good results, and all of a sudden they're living fitness and they're living health. They're the best ambassador for you, right? Look at, a situation like this of, some of these guys coming up and speaking. They worked with me for a long time, right? They had great success in their businesses, and now they're in a platform where they're teaching. It's the same kind of thing. Marlon.
A lot of the things I do with my older clients, I ask for their kids or their nephews, 16, 17, someone who's trying to get a leadership skill and try to work with the community and get off the phone and work face to face. And they usually send me a young person just for the summer, so I could do all the community outreach, all the summer camps, the high schools and everything else. And then after summer, I just thank them and send them on their way.
Good. Very good.
So far, I've had really good luck with the ones that I've trained in-house that were clients. So that's probably what I need to do. I think because they get the culture and they want to they want to extend the culture because they receive so much from it. So it's easy to, what was the term? one of the guys used earlier, but basically just, you know, keeping that culture going, or the core values and whatnot, they get it. So I've tried bringing someone in from the outside and it just didn't really feel right, because she was at a different gym and she wanted to bring everything she knew from there. So like, I think getting their brain while it's a freshie has worked so far, but I don't think people around here know what Indeed is either. Like, we just got Uber, like literally just got so I'll keep at this though. It's working.
Where's your gym?
Put an ad in the yellow pages.
It's so good.
I don't know why they just driving right to the dump. That's what
Yeah. Rachel, it actually is built. Somebody mentioned something about people's commutes earlier, and like literally my commute is about 30 steps from my front door because we built a gym on our property. So we're in Idaho in a little resort town. So
Got it.
Awesome. I love it. Great job, everyone. TJ, hey, post below what you thought of TJ's presentation. I thought it was pretty damn good. Post below.
Thanks, everyone. Even though I had the technical difficulties, and Joe stole my thunder half the time.
You're all right.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. We're at the home stretch. I don't have a ton. I'm doing a basic review, and then I'm going to be leading you guys through a guided rock setting session, which is essentially going to help you plan out what are going to be the main